The morning sunlight streamed through the tall arched windows of the Hart family estate, casting golden patterns across the polished oak floors. Flowers, pale pink roses and white lilies, were arranged meticulously by the florist, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. Laughter echoed from the dressing rooms as bridesmaids fussed over Emily Hart, the bride, smoothing her ivory gown and adjusting her veil. Yet beneath the excitement, Emily seemed restless. She sat on the edge of a chaise lounge, glancing at her phone for the fourth time in 5 minutes. Sophie, her best friend since childhood, noticed the tension. "Emily, are you okay?" Sophie asked, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Emily forced a smile. "I'm fine, just wedding jitters, I guess." Sophie didn't push further, though she caught the flicker of unease in Emily's eyes. Something about the day felt off, but she couldn't place it. Downstairs, Daniel Reed, Emily's husband-to-be, was nervously adjusting his cufflinks. The venue was buzzing with early guests, a mix of family and close friends, all dressed in shades of soft pastels. Daniel smiled and shook hands, making polite conversation, though his eyes frequently darted toward the doors, as if waiting for something, or someone. By the time the ceremony began, the tension seemed to dissolve into excitement. Emily descended the grand staircase, her dress flowing like liquid ivory, and the guests gasped at her beauty. Daniel's face softened into a proud, loving smile. Everything seemed perfect until the vows were exchanged. After the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Emily smiled at Daniel, her eyes sparkling, and then she stepped outside. At first, no one thought it strange. It was common to step outside for a quick phone call or to take a breath before the reception. But minutes passed, and Emily did not return. A slight unease rippled through the crowd. The photographer, who had been adjusting his camera settings, frowned. "Maybe she's just taking a few pictures outside," someone suggested. Daniel nodded, but a tiny crease appeared between his brows. He excused himself and went to the doorway, calling her name softly. No response. Sophie began to worry. She walked toward the garden doors and saw Emily's phone lying abandoned on a stone bench. The screen lit up with a single message. "Help me." Her heart raced. She picked up the phone, trying to call Emily, but it went straight to voicemail. Daniel reappeared, panic barely contained beneath his composed exterior. "Emily! Emily, where are you?" His voice, usually steady, trembled slightly. No one answered. The guests started whispering, fear creeping into their conversations. A few suggested calling the police, but Daniel insisted he knew she was fine. He said she probably just needed a moment alone. But his words lacked conviction. Minutes turned into an hour. Emily's absence became a growing concern. Daniel retraced his steps, asked the staff, even checked the nearby streets. He reported that he had last seen her stepping out to take a phone call, yet nobody seemed to have seen anyone approach her. Detective Laura Benson arrived at the estate mid-afternoon. Her dark trench coat fluttered slightly in the breeze as she assessed the scene. She was a woman with sharp eyes and a mind that rarely missed details. Within minutes, she noticed subtle anomalies. A single glove lay discarded near the garden path, its pair nowhere to be found. A torn page from Emily's journal was crumpled in the hedge. "Who found this?" she asked, holding up the glove. Sophie spoke first. "I saw it there when I went to look for Emily. I thought maybe she dropped it by accident." Benson's gaze shifted to Daniel. His jaw was tight, and there was a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. He insisted he hadn't seen the glove or the page. "Can anyone account for your whereabouts the last 30 minutes before she stepped out?" Vincent asked. Daniel hesitated. I was greeting guests. I saw her go out, and then I looked for her." His voice wavered, betraying a hint of uncertainty. The detective made a note. She didn't accuse him yet, but instinctively she knew Daniel's story didn't line up perfectly. Meanwhile, Sophie noticed something else. A dark SUV parked a few houses down, idling silently as if waiting. The vehicle was unfamiliar, and when she squinted, it seemed empty, but her gut told her it wasn't. She pointed it out to Benson, who made a note for investigation. The day stretched into evening, shadows growing long over the estate. Emily's phone continued to buzz with messages from concerned family and friends, all unanswered. Daniel sat slumped in a chair in the empty reception hall, staring at the door Emily had vanished through, his hands trembling slightly. His mind raced. Had someone taken her? Did she run away? Or was it something far worse? Then, just as the sky turned a deep bruised purple, a message appeared on Emily's abandoned phone. The words were typed but not sent. "If you want to find me, look where the roses hide." Sophie gasped. Daniel froze. Detective Benson's eyes narrowed. No one understood what it meant, but one thing was clear. Emily's disappearance was not an accident. Someone had planned it, and someone had left a trail meant to be followed, or perhaps meant to confuse. Detective Laura Benson sat in her car outside the Hart estate, her mind racing through the details she had observed earlier. The discarded glove, the torn journal page, the cryptic text on Emily's phone. Each clue was a small piece of a puzzle, yet nothing fit neatly. She had seen plenty of missing person cases, but something about this one felt different. The precision, the subtlety, the psychological tension, it all pointed to planning. Someone had watched Emily closely, and they knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. Inside the house, Daniel Reed paced the grand reception hall, phone pressed to his ear as he spoke with Emily's family. His normally calm demeanor was gone, replaced by tension and guilt. His hands shook slightly as he muttered apologies and tried to reassure everyone, though he had little reassurance to offer himself. Sophie entered quietly, holding Emily's phone tightly in her hand. She had examined it for any additional clues and noticed a pattern: deleted messages, blocked numbers, and one mysterious contact that appeared briefly before vanishing. She handed the phone to Daniel. "They were here," she said, voice trembling. "Someone was trying to contact her, or maybe someone was tracking her." Daniel's face paled. Who? Who would do this?" Sophie shrugged, but her eyes betrayed suspicion. Even she didn't fully trust the calm, rehearsed responses Daniel had given to the police earlier. Detective Benson stepped into the room, commanding attention without raising her voice. "We're going to need to go through everyone who had contact with Emily in the last 48 hours, she said. Her eyes lingered on Daniel for a moment longer than necessary. "And Daniel, I'll need you to be completely honest. No omissions." Daniel nodded, swallowing hard. "I've told you everything I know. I love her. I would never—" His voice broke slightly. Benson made a mental note. He sounded desperate, maybe scared, but desperate men often made mistakes. The detective began interviewing friends and family. Emily's maid of honor described how Emily had been distracted in the weeks leading up to the wedding, checking her phone obsessively, sometimes looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone. Sophie confirmed the same pattern. Emily had confided in her closest friends that she received threatening messages, cryptic warnings like, "Stop asking questions," or "You'll regret digging." At first, they had dismissed it as harmless harassment, but now the stakes were terrifyingly clear. Emily's instincts, the people who loved her, and the warnings she had received all pointed toward danger. Meanwhile, the CCTV footage from the street outside the estate revealed a shadowy figure following Emily on her way outside. The figure's face was obscured by a hood, but the posture, the way the figure moved deliberately, suggested someone who knew her routine. Detective Benson's stomach tightened. This was no random stranger. This was someone who had studied her, someone with intent. Sophie's eyes widened as she pointed to a moment on the tape. "There, that person. It almost looks like they—" "Stop! Rewind!" The figure had paused near the bushes, as if waiting for Emily to pass. The camera couldn't capture any identifying details, but the movement was deliberate, calculated. Daniel stared at the screen, his face a mix of fear and frustration. Why would someone do this? Why Emily? His voice cracked, and for a moment he looked like the man he had been earlier, nervous, protective, but innocent. The detective studied him carefully. She didn't know yet if he was lying, but every instinct told her that Daniel was hiding something, even if it was only details he thought irrelevant. As the hours ticked by, new suspects emerged. There was Jason Carter, Emily's ex-boyfriend, who had been unusually vocal about his disapproval of her relationship with Daniel. He claimed he was out of town on the wedding day, but his alibi was flimsy. Then there was Margaret Reed, Daniel's estranged aunt, who had publicly argued with Emily at a family dinner months earlier. Her resentment had simmered beneath polite family appearances, and her sharp tongue and harsh words left more than a few people wondering if she might lash out in more dangerous ways. Even the florist who delivered the flowers that morning began to seem suspicious. He had been unusually precise about when he arrived and when he left, and Detective Benson noticed his clothes had faint smudges of dirt, as if he had been moving through bushes, coincidentally near the area where Emily vanished. The tension mounted further when Daniel received a cryptic voicemail on his phone. Emily's voice, trembling and faint, whispered, "If you're listening, it's not safe. I'm in the place where the roses hide." Then the line went dead. Daniel stared at his phone, frozen. The roses hide? What does that mean? Detective Benson's eyes narrowed. That's a location. She's leaving clues. We have to figure out where she's trying to lead us. Sophie, meanwhile, was panicking. Could she be in danger? Is someone following her? Probably, Benson said grimly. And we're running out of time. Whoever did this is calculating every move. But this message, this was intentional. She wants someone to find her, someone she trusts. As night fell over the estate, the atmosphere shifted from anxiety to outright fear. Guests had gone home, and the garden, once vibrant and alive, now seemed shadowed and ominous. Every creak of a door, every whisper of the wind through the trees set nerves on edge. Detective Benson ordered a search of the surrounding area, while Daniel and Sophie combed through Emily's belongings for additional clues. Hidden among her personal items, they found a small journal, previously unnoticed. In it, Emily had written about someone she referred to only as the Shadow, someone who had been watching her for weeks, leaving cryptic threats and messages. Daniel's hands shook as he read one passage aloud. "I can feel it watching me. Every step I take, every time I check my phone, I know it's there. I don't know if it's someone I know or someone I'll never see. I have to be careful. I have to leave a trail, just in case." Sophie's gasped. She planned this? But why? What could she possibly be hiding? Benson's face was stone. Whatever it is, it's dangerous, and Emily's smart. She knows it. But if someone finds her first, she might not survive. The night deepened, the shadows growing longer, and the mystery thickened. Emily Hart was missing, Daniel Reed's innocence was in question, and the small town, once peaceful and serene, suddenly felt like a trap. The detective knew the next step was crucial. If they didn't decipher Emily's cryptic message in time, the consequences could be irreversible. And just as the search team spread out through the estate and surrounding gardens, Sophie noticed something that made her stomach drop. A faint light flickering in the distance near a secluded area overgrown with bushes. It pulsed briefly, then vanished. Detective Benson's jaw tightened. She knew one thing for certain: the real danger had only just begun. Watching. The three of them moved carefully along the path, the branches scratching at their clothes. The air was damp, smelling of earth and decaying leaves. Every rustle of a squirrel or snap of a twig made Daniel jump, Sophie flinch, and even Benson tense her shoulders. After several minutes, they reached a clearing where the remains of a small wooden cabin appeared, partially hidden by trees. It looked abandoned, paint peeling and windows either broken or covered in grime. But something was off. There were faint footprints in the muddy ground leading inside. Benson crouched to inspect them. "Fresh," she muttered. "Someone was here recently, and not just passing through, walking carefully, deliberately." Daniel's jaw tightened. "It could be Emily," he whispered, hope and fear clashing in his tone. Sophie's phone buzzed suddenly. She glanced down and gasped. A photo had appeared from an unknown contact, Emily inside a dimly lit room, bound to a chair, a frightened look on her face, with a message, "Help me, hurry." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "We have to go in, now." Benson held up a hand. "Carefully. We don't know who else is here. Someone could be waiting." They approached the cabin slowly. The wooden door creaked as Benson pushed it open. Inside, dust and decay filled the room. Broken chairs and scattered papers suggested a struggle had occurred, but there was no sign of Emily. Sophie's eyes fell on a small desk pushed into the corner. Papers littered the surface, and one particular envelope caught her attention. She picked it up and read aloud, "To anyone who finds this, Emily Hart has uncovered secrets dangerous enough to kill for. Trust no one outside this note. Look for the hidden camera near the far corner of the cabin. It will reveal the truth." Benson's eyes narrowed. She knew immediately that Emily had planned her disappearance with intention. Whoever she was running from wasn't just stalking her. It was someone with resources, someone who wanted the Hart family and Daniel exposed or silenced. The detective moved to the far corner and found a small, half-hidden camera pointing toward the center of the room. She plugged in her tablet and played the footage. On the grainy screen, Emily appeared, her eyes wide with fear, speaking directly to the camera. "I don't know how much time I have. If you're watching this, it means I'm missing or worse. Daniel, if you're innocent, please trust no one. There's a man following me, connected to your father's business. I found evidence and he knows. He won't stop until he gets it. The cabin, this is my only chance to hide until it's safe." Daniel's hands shook violently. "My father, what have we gotten involved in?" Benson looked at him sharply. "Stay focused. Emily is alive, but she's in danger, and whoever we're dealing with is clever, calculating. We have to be careful." Sophie pointed to another part of the cabin, a loose floorboard lifted to reveal a small, hidden compartment. Inside were documents detailing financial transactions, emails, and photographs implicating Daniel's father's business rival in illegal dealings. Emily had been investigating, and her findings made her a target. Daniel's mind raced. So Emily staged this, but she's still hiding, and she left clues for us. She's trying to protect herself and me. Benson nodded. "Exactly, but she's smart. She knows how to manipulate appearances. If the wrong person sees this, it could end badly. We need to find her fast." Outside, the wind rustled the leaves ominously. Daniel's phone buzzed again, another message from Emily. "Don't come alone. He knows. Trust the police." Benson tightened her grip on her flashlight. "She's warning us. Someone is still nearby, probably watching the cabin." Suddenly, a branch snapped behind them. All three spun around, flashlights cutting through the dark. There was no one, just shadows stretching long across the ground, but the sense of being observed was palpable. Benson's gut told her Emily's captor was close, perhaps lingering near the forest edge, waiting for an opportunity. "We can't stay here. We need a plan. She's alive, she's scared, and time is running out." Daniel sank to a nearby log, his face buried in his hands. I almost lost her, and I didn't even know it." Sophie sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "She's smart. She's leaving breadcrumbs. We just have to follow them carefully." Benson made a decision. "We split, teams of 2. Daniel, you stay here with Sophie. I'll scout the perimeter, check for any signs of the person who's been following her. Once I confirm it's safe, we move in together. No mistakes." As she moved toward the tree line, Benson's flashlight flickered against the shadows. A figure, tall and dark, slipped behind the trees. She froze, heart pounding. The chase was just beginning, and the danger was closer than they realized. The part ends on a tense cliffhanger. Emily is alive, leaving clues, but the threat is real and immediate. The audience is left questioning who the shadowy figure is, an unknown stalker, the business rival, or someone closer to Daniel than he realizes. The next part promises the final confrontation and shocking revelations. Detective Laura Benson crouched behind a cluster of thick bushes at the edge of the clearing, her breath visible in the early morning chill. The cabin lay in the pale light of dawn, half hidden by the overgrown roses and brambles. She motioned for Daniel and Sophie to stay low, her eyes scanning the perimeter. Somewhere inside or nearby, Emily Hart waited, and the shadowy figure from the previous night could still be lurking. Every second counted. Benson's instinct screamed at her that the captor was highly organized, someone with access, knowledge of the estate, and the ability to strike without warning. She had no room for error. "Daniel, Sophie," she whispered, "we're going in carefully. Emily is alive, and she's left breadcrumbs for us, but she's not out of danger yet. Follow my lead." Daniel nodded, jaw tight. His hands shook slightly, not just from fear, but from the weight of guilt. He had almost lost her, his bride, the woman he loved. Sophie clutched Emily's phone, her fingers white around the edges. Benson signaled, and the three moved forward, stealthy as shadows. They approached the cabin from the side, where Emily had hinted at a hidden entrance. The floorboards creaked under their weight, and a chill ran down Daniel's spine. Something about the silence was unnatural. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Inside the cabin, the room was dimly lit by the weak morning light streaming through the broken windows. Papers, a tipped-over chair, and signs of struggle littered the floor. Emily was not immediately visible. Then, from the far corner, a faint sound, a soft whimper, caught their attention. "Emily?" Daniel called softly, his voice cracking with emotion. A figure emerged from behind a large crate. Emily's eyes were wide, cheeks streaked with tears, but her posture was defiant. She quickly stood, signaling them to wait. Benson's flashlight scanned the room, and that's when they saw him, the man in the dark hoodie, crouched near a doorway, attempting to retrieve the hidden documents Emily had compiled. His movements were calculated, but careless in the morning light. "Freeze!" Benson barked, pulling her gun. The man jumped, nearly tipping over, and reached for something at his waist, a knife. But before he could move further, Daniel stepped forward instinctively, his anger overtaking fear. "Stay away from her!" Emily moved quickly, grabbing a heavy wooden chair and swinging it toward the intruder. He stumbled back, and Benson seized the moment to move in, tackling him to the ground. A brief struggle ensued, the man thrashing violently, but Benson's training and quick reflexes allowed her to secure him. As the adrenaline faded, Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "It's over. I knew he would come for the evidence. That's why I left clues." Daniel stared at her, awe and guilt warring on his face. You were alive this whole time?" Emily nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, but I couldn't just walk out. He's dangerous. He works with people who will kill for what I found. I had to be smart." Benson quickly cuffed the intruder, her eyes cold and calculating. "He's connected to your father's business rival. Emily found documents exposing illegal transactions, threats, and shady deals. He was sent to retrieve them, maybe worse." Daniel's hands shook as he took Emily's hands into his. I never realized. I didn't know. I should have protected you. I failed." Emily's expression softened, though exhaustion and fear lingered. "You didn't fail, Daniel. I needed to protect myself first, and I knew if I left a trail, you'd follow, but safely, with Benson here. I had to outsmart him." Sophie stepped closer, examining the documents Emily had recovered. Her eyes widened. "These prove everything. The threats, the fraud, the attempts to silence her. This is huge." Emily nodded. "Exactly, and now we have it. The police can take care of him and his network, but I wasn't going to be another statistic. I had to make sure they couldn't touch me or anyone I love." Daniel looked at her, a mix of pride, awe, and lingering fear. "I don't deserve you sometimes." Emily shook her head, placing a hand on his cheek. "We survived this together, Daniel. That's what matters." Benson kept her eyes on the subdued intruder, her mind analyzing the situation. This doesn't end here. He might have accomplices, but at least now Emily is safe and we have enough evidence to bring him down. The morning sun rose higher, filtering through the trees and illuminating the cabin. What had once been a place of fear and danger now felt like a small victory, a moment of relief before the larger battle against corruption and threats could be finalized. Emily turned to Daniel and Sophie, her voice steadier now. "I left clues for a reason. I trusted you both to follow them carefully, and now we move forward, together." Daniel pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly. "I promise, no more mistakes. I'll protect you, always." Sophie, relieved beyond words, finally allowed herself a small smile. "You scared us all half to death, Emily." Emily laughed softly, the sound like a balm to the tension that had gripped them for days. "I know, but sometimes surviving means being smart, staying hidden, and letting others help when you can." Benson watched silently, feeling the weight of the case lift slightly. Justice had not only been served, but Emily's bravery and planning had ensured that the threat was neutralized. Yet she knew the world was rarely safe for those who uncovered secrets like these. Emily had been lucky and careful. The police arrived soon after, taking the intruder into custody. The evidence he carried was sufficient to tie him to the rival business faction, and Emily's documents ensured a legal case that would leave no room for doubt. As the cabin cleared and the sun warmed the clearing, Emily and Daniel walked together toward the edge of the forest. The ordeal had tested their trust, their courage, and their love, but it had also revealed the depth of Emily's resilience. "I'm glad you're alive," Daniel whispered, holding her close. "Me too, but now we start again, and we make sure nothing like this ever happens again." Benson followed at a distance, her mind already reviewing every step, every clue, every twist. The case had been complicated, but in the end, Emily's intelligence, courage, and careful planning had won the day. The shadows that had once stalked her were gone, replaced by a dawn full of light, justice, and a hard-earned sense of relief. But even as they walked away, the audience knew danger lurked in unexpected places, and the clever, cautious, and brave would always need to stay one step ahead. The story closes with a final note of suspense. Emily's cleverness ensured her survival, but the world remained unpredictable, and vigilance was the only true safeguard.